Hey everybody, welcome back. When I started collecting tarot decks, although that was never my intention to collect, what actually was going through my mind was to find the perfect deck for me. I realize this may not be what the majority of tarot and oracle deck collectors are doing, but that's what I was thinking at the time. The search for the perfect deck. But by now, I definitely have found some staples in my collection. I definitely have some favorites. But I also still get rid of decks I don't use or don't like enough to keep. So am I a collector? I'm not sure. I definitely have more than one deck. But I usually don't collect to collect. Now, if that's what brings you joy, then, that's great. Do whatever works for you, obviously. But I want to talk about what I think it means to try to find the perfect deck. And I want to challenge you by making a hashtag, what decks are what I call main decks and what decks are what I call mood decks. So main decks and mood decks. Now, I will, of course, explain what those are. But if you want to join, please use those hashtags so I can find the video and, add it to my VR playlist. Let's start with finding the perfect deck. Now, I'm speaking from my own perspective, of course, and if you disagree, please let me know what it's like for you. If you have had a different experience, I'm very interested in hearing your point of view. But what I feel is that there is no perfect deck out there. Every deck, no matter how much you love it, has something, however little or insignificant, that at least I would like to change or wouldn't mind, seeing differently. So you all know my favorite deck. It's the Triomphe de la Luna Paradoxical, but yeah, it has flaws, and those flaws are, I'm well aware, just a matter of taste. But I think when talking about collecting decks, my initial reason to buy a second deck was to find one that suited me better than the one I already had. And you may know my first deck was a Rider-Waite-Smith. Now, I got my Centennial a little bit later than that. But even then, I thought there must be a deck out there that suits me better, that's more perfect, because I saw these flaws. So yeah, it was to find a deck that I thought suited me better than the one that I already had, which was a Rider-Waite-Smith. Little did I know, I was actually just looking for a change, something different than this imagery, which is fine, but I strongly believe that I was on the hunt to find my perfect deck, I was absolutely in love with this one, but it wasn't perfect. Now, the reason I think the perfect deck doesn't exist is because we ourselves are not perfect. And the tarot, no matter what imagery you choose to have in front of you, it will always reflect ourselves. And so, since we are not perfect, neither is the tarot, neither is the deck. Now, coming to terms with the fact that even my number one tarot deck is not perfect, I take the whole there has to be one perfect deck out there for me thing way, way, way less seriously. Actually, I don't believe that anymore. And I allow myself more than just the one or two decks, because that in itself is a joy, actually. I am aware, though, since I've stopped looking for perfection, that I have main decks and I have mood decks. And the mood decks I consider more of a luxury, and the main decks are really what my journey with the tarot is so far. So I'll explain. Now, this is an idea that came from Mary Grace, and I've decided to call it main or mood decks. But what she said was something along the lines of, if you can mentally picture every single card of the deck, if it's a tarot deck, every 78 card, then that is proof of a deep connection to the deck. So this is the challenge, and it's actually harder than it sounds if, like me, you have more than one deck or, you know, a handful of decks. But the experiment is, if you can picture every card, then that is considered a main deck. You know, like mentally go through the deck. You start with the Fool, and then the Magician, and then the High Priestess, etc. Same with all the courts, same with all the pips. So really all 78 cards. And then that is considered a main deck because you know it, and you can perhaps, with those decks, I think, dive a little bit deeper, you know, with those specific decks, because you're already familiar with its voice. And the 3 decks that I can do that with, that I was actually confident in my ability to do that with, I also tried with other decks, but I was a little bit less successful. The 3 decks that I can do that with are, well, my Rider-Waite-Smith. You can picture all those cards. My Thoth deck. And my Trionfi de la Luna. Now, this is actually quite hilarious to me because those are my main decks even without, you know, having the confirmation of this challenge. But I love these 3 decks. I love them so much, and I use them all the time, which of course is why I know them so well. But also, you know, these are the decks I will most comfortably use for clients as well, because there is this real relationship that we have with the decks. Now, I use them all the time, and I use them for clients, but also just for me, I kind of know that they're always there, you know, fitting for me to use no matter what mood I'm in. So that brings me to the next thing, of course. We've talked about main decks a little bit. Now let's talk about mood decks. Because what are my mood decks then, if those are my 3 main decks? Basically, all the other decks in my collection. Where are they? Here. You know, I don't want to part with those decks either. I don't want to part with them because I also love them very much. But there are clear reasons why I keep them, even without them having a lead role in my tarot practice. So some of them do actually have an important role and are very much on the forefront, but still not a lead role. You know, they're still not a lead. But some clear examples of some clear moods that I can talk about, or, you know, just the mindset or the way that I'm feeling, or even what I need to get out of the deck, which is why I think this hashtag is also interesting. That's also one of the things, is, for instance, let me get them. Get a few of them. My Wildwood is the first one I always think as a mood deck, because this was a deck that I got when I started collecting, if you will, or, you know, was on the hunt for a perfect deck. My Wildwood I use in mostly the colder, darker months, and when I feel really introverted, when I really feel just that I need to be in my own mind, in my own body. That often happens when it's rainy and dark outside, you know, when it's cold, because this deck usually makes me feel very warm and cozy. So that is a clear mood to me, right? Of course, it has more, I don't know, it does more for me than just that, but it's that's a clear mood, I'd say. Then, for instance, here I have my Tarot of a Moon Garden, which is my inner child deck. So I reach for this when I want to do inner child work, or just some type of 90s nostalgia thing with those colors and, you know, just this dreaminess of this deck. When I feel a little bit maybe with my head in the clouds. And I want to sparkle some imagination, you know? So there's that. And yeah, let's do another one. Okay, so very clear one is, well, I don't have it here, but the Halloween Tarot, which is also a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, just like the Tarot of a Moon Garden is. The Halloween Tarot is so obviously, you know, Halloween themed, that I use it in the month of October or on Halloween, around Halloween, and it's really spooky and also kind of funny and quirky. And then Secret Bikini Oracle. I definitely reach for that when I'm feeling like I need the strangeness that this deck is, because it's completely weird and out of the box and not a traditional tarot deck, but it has tarot elements. And yeah, what else can I say about this? When I want to do intuitive readings, yeah, it's very strange when I want some out of this world experience, or when I already feel like I don't want to work with the standard tarot system. That's also, you know, quite possible. When I need different symbols in front of me. So you can hear they all have their own voice, it feels like, and somewhat of a theme also, I'd say. But I have them for when I'm in a certain mood, and that goes for all of these decks, you know, next to the main decks that I have. So I don't feel that necessarily takes away from the messages I get from them, but just that in my experience with these decks, they seem just a little like they're leaning in a certain direction, you know, whereas my main decks, even though, for instance, Thoth, I feel, has very fiery energy, is, how would I say that? They are so well balanced, I could say. I feel that it encompasses pretty much every mood, you know, every possible mood, because they are so well balanced, because they don't lean in a certain direction, really. Even though, as I said, you know, maybe a little bit contradictory, but it's just a feeling. And it's hilarious that I consider these three my main decks, you know, because I know them by heart. Therefore, it makes sense that it feels like they know me as well in return. They know me by heart as well. And then it's easier to do that deep work, you know, that we want to do with tarot. For me personally, I think I've said that maybe once before. I feel most often that I get to those deeper levels using these three main tarot decks because I know them so well. I have more chance of reaching that deeper level with decks that I know really, really well. Now that might seem really obvious, but you know, I think that most tarot enthusiasts like having more than one deck or more than just a few decks because of that variety. But then there's also that question in the back of my mind, also when I'm using those mood decks for myself, am I getting to that deeper stage, you know? But that's not really what this video is about, but maybe worth mentioning, you know, there's a reason why these are main decks. And as I said, the mood decks are more like an extra. They're a luxury. I don't need them. Now, I could be a perfectly happy tarot reader, you know, reading for just myself or reading for clients, reading for others with just these three decks, these main decks. You know, honestly, I could also just do that with just one deck. That's also another conversation. But yeah, there's also something to say for that variety, as I've said. And that's also why I keep these mood decks around. Now, there's something I forgot here. Yeah, the hilarious part. That it's really funny to me, and also so, like, I don't know that word, but it's really funny to me that my main decks are traditional systems. It could very well be, I might be wrong, but it could very well be that I feel, well, there are several reasons why I know these decks best. Just because I'm attracted to them, so I work with them a lot. Also, I started learning tarot with the Rider-Waite-Smith, so that's a system I know very well. You know, I know those images very well. I can easily picture all 78 cards in my mind. I was stumbling over my words a little bit there, but what I meant was, am I wrong in thinking that the Thoth and a Rider-Waite-Smith, for instance, and perhaps an older Marseille, you know, all of those symbols and all of those things, that it could be just a little bit more esoterically researched, and also that it just took a longer time to make those decks, to make that system. Maybe I'm wrong, but I also kind of feel like that could be a factor, right? And then also just obviously the fact that there is a lot of different information coming from different angles with those three main systems that I use, at least. Now, I know that my Triomphe is not a traditional Marseille, and you know, there were a lot of liberties that were taken here, but still I consider it, you know, a traditional system. So those are the strengths for me, because, you know, intuitive readings and all that stuff, I don't really like to say it that way. I prefer to say I read the tarot, and then of course there is, you know, the base is the knowledge, but then of course there is the intuition helping the flow of the reading. So intuition is very important. But on the other hand, my study tarot brain is also saying, well, there's also kind of proof, almost. I know that that statement is flawed, but there's also kind of proof that this is what this card means in its essence. You know what I mean? So I don't want to push that too much, but still, I think it's valid. I think it's safe to say that it's maybe also just this nice thing of, I know the base because there is one, you know? And I know that the reading will flow because there's also intuition, and we also make our own rules, you know, being tarot readers, and that is that whole creativity aspect of this craft, which we all, I think, love very much as well. But I think that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you'll enjoy doing this challenge. The hashtag is #maindex and #mooddex. I've made 2 separate tags just in case you wish to make 2 videos about this. Now, I'm using both tags in the same video just to explain it and, you know, hopefully inspire you to make a VR. But you can do 2 videos because I don't know how many decks you know by heart. For me, it was just 3. Also, I figured, you know, I'm not going to try with all too many decks. So 3 of them made the cut, if you will, as main decks. But if you have, you know, a mood decks that you want to talk about or flip through and explain why those are your mood decks and all that stuff, I think that could also be a lot of fun to watch. Anyway, let me know how this was for you. I would love to see everyone's main decks and perhaps what those decks mean to you. And of course, your mood decks as well, you know, at least some of them. So thanks so much.